It's time for New York City Baseball, past, present, and future.
I'm back. New York City Baseball, past, present, and future. My co-host, Wayne Unger. I'm Ralph Tyko. Wayne, how the hell are you?
I'm doing great, Ralph. Great to be here.
All right. We have a very special guest. We've been doing this 3 or 4 weeks. It gets more and more fun every week. And let me give him a proper introduction. You ready for this, Wayne? And here we go. Now batting for the Yankees, number 14, Ron Swoboda, number 14. What do you think of that?
There's a voice
Rocky?
from the past. Yeah. It's
That
like
was my
when
voice.
Jeter comes up. I know it was you, but yeah, you did a pretty good job of the Yankee Stadium announcement.
All right.
Long past.
That's from the past. And you were not only a Met, you were a Yankee. You were both and a Montreal Expo. And but more than that, you're still in baseball. You're a baseball lifer. Tell me what you got going on right now.
Well, I have probably the best of all worlds. I'm technically retired, but I do some color broadcasting for the New Orleans Zephyrs here in New Orleans. We're the AAA affiliate of the Marlins in Miami, and it's a great gig. It hadn't felt like work yet. The big news with our little franchise here is that we have a new 50% controlling ownership that's just injecting a whole lot of energy into the franchise here in New Orleans, and it's going to be good for all the young people that work there, and I think maybe make New Orleans look at this AAA team they've had for quite a few years now in a new and more interested way.
How did you get to New Orleans? What prompted?
Well, I came here to do television. When I was finished with baseball, I worked for about 4.5 years at WCBS in New York, and then went, when that contract was not renewed, I was looking for work and went to Milwaukee for a couple of years, then went to New Orleans for a few, and then went out to Phoenix for about 3 years, and then came back to New Orleans and really finished up what was about 20 years of local television sports. So I retired from that and was kind of looking for something to do. And
those are key words for everybody out there. I'm 69. Wayne hasn't yet retired. He's but is looking forward to it. You got to do something. You got to keep your hand in. You got to.
Well,
otherwise,
I'm very, very fortunate that this has this gig has continued. Don Beaver, the guy that until he made the sale, now owns 50% of the Zephyrs here, and he sold it to a group of people. Lou Scheckheimer is a guy from Pawtucket, Rhode Island, and they had a very successful operation there. But Lou bought a controlling 50% of the franchise here in New Orleans, and they're going to run this thing with a lot more vigor and a lot more energy, and so I'm kind of excited because I want to see how it's going to work for all the people who are there. They're not letting anybody go. They're hiring more people. They're going to put a little money into it that hasn't happened in a number of years, and that's kind of a rebirth going on here. And I'm glad at the age of I'll be 72 before this summer's over. So. Wow. I'm kind of anxious to see how it all shakes out.
Yeah.
Ron, let me ask you something. The previous ownership, would you say that they had gotten lax, like it was.
Well, I think.
Okay.
Well, you know what? I would never accuse Don Beaver, who owns a couple of AAA teams. He owns us, and he owns the Charlotte Hornets, and he's not a guy that he's an older fella, and I just don't think he had the energy personally to put into it. And he's been owning this franchise for a long time. And, you know, these things are equity games. You know, you hang on to it. You put money into it. You're not making a lot of, day-to-day profit from it. And what you do is when you sell it, you make your money, you know. He sold 50% controlling share for just about what he bought it for, maybe 15, 20 years ago.
Well,
right.
That doesn't sound, in this day and age, that doesn't sound like a great profit.
He did fine. And the good news is he sold it for what he bought it for, but he sold half of it for what he bought the whole thing for.
Gotcha.
And he still got 50%. And
yes.
he sold it to some people coming in with energy and a few bucks.
Now that's a good deal.
Yeah.
Good deal for both teams, as they say.
Sure.
Let's go back in time a little, Ron. You were signed before free agency, and what?
Yeah, just a couple of years before. The draft.
Not all that much before, on the face of things. If you look back on the whole history of baseball, very short period of time before that. How were you scouted? Were you scouted out of high school? Was it college? What's that process like? And
I was at the University of Maryland, and I played for a 16-19 age group team in Baltimore, up in the city of Baltimore. I grew up in Baltimore County. I played for a team in the city. It was the best team in Maryland, the best 16-19 team in the state of Maryland. My last summer, we played over 90 ball games in the summer. And you played for a guy, Walter Yaus, who was he was a scout for the Baltimore Orioles. And I always kind of hoped that it would lead me to sign with the Orioles, but that wasn't going to happen. They had spent a lot of money on a pitcher named Wally Bunker, and I don't know. They thought I was going back to the University of Maryland, and the Mets, for whom I had played for a bird dog scout back when I was 16, 17 years old, they had scouted me, and I had a very good tournament up in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, which is triple ABA, and had a very good tournament. And the Mets came in and said, "We're going to make you an offer. Can't guarantee it's going to be on the table tomorrow, but we're going to write a number on a piece of paper." And this was back in 1963, and after the summer of '63, and they wrote $35,000 on a piece of paper and handed it to me. And my mom and dad, both working jobs back then, made about $12,500 between them, and I've always joked that if you wanted to get hurt, just put yourself between me and that piece of paper they wanted me to sign, because you were going to get run over. It was one of those deals where I could have, I wasn't very savvy in terms of business. I could have said no, thank you, and come back when you're serious. But my folks looked at me, and neither of them were astute business people. Said, "What do you think?" And I said, "I'm ready to sign it. I'm ready to be a New York Met," because it seemed like a good opportunity with a young team that needed talent. Yeah, how could I ever say I regretted it? Because I got to the big leagues quickly, probably a year or so before I should have.
Now, did that curtail your career not having minor league experience as much minor.
I had 1 year in the minor leagues, and I think today the trend seems to be in baseball today. They can't wait to get that big talent to the big leagues, and I think it might have helped me build a little more base of skill underneath what ability I had, a little more understanding of the game rather than learning on the job in the big leagues in front of everybody.
Right.
Your mistakes magnified by newspaper coverage and that sort of thing, and the pressure of playing in the big leagues with the best guys.
And a grumpy Casey Stengel. What was that like?
Casey Stengel was never grumpy with me. I considered the year, actually half the season I played for Casey Stengel, the golden days of my baseball career. I hit 15 home runs for Casey Stengel in the first half of 1965. I never hit 15 home runs for anybody else in a full season. So he put me out there and let me play.
You were 20 years old, Ron. Am I right?
I know, and that's look. He put me out there. He said, "You're not going to learn how to hit these guys sitting on the bench. They didn't have a lot of better they didn't have a lot of better alternatives. So I got to play, and I wasn't ready to play. I didn't know anything about the professional game of baseball. I had played 1 year in Double-A, and I was just playing it by ear and making all those mistakes in front of everybody, and who were some of the coaches that helped you and instructed you that you remember from those Mets days? Well, there was an old guy named Clyde McCullough who was one of these just wonderful old catchers from the Cubs way back when. Right. Clyde, good God, he was old school, and you talk about gnarly old grouches, but he was a funny guy too, and he helped me a little bit throwing. He helped me, Casey. Casey was an old outfielder, and Casey had some tips on playing in the outfield that could help you, and I felt like that if you listened, and one of the things I did do was listen to Casey Stengel. I know a lot of people think it was all baloney, all this running diatribe of stories, but I felt like if you listen to Casey, if you listen to him, he had something to tell you, and so what if it was from 50 years ago? Right. Let's real quickly go to Gil Hodges. How did his style differ? What was that like? Well, Gil was building the team. How much was Gil responsible for that? Look, I don't think the Mets win a World Series in 1969 if anybody else but Gil Hodges is managing. I don't know too many people that whose feel for the game and decisiveness and ability to stay on top of the game, ahead of the game. The game never got past Gil, never got ahead of him. He knew what he wanted to do, and in 1969, we gave him a lot of buttons to push. And when Gil did things, when Gil made moves, he didn't always make you happy, and I didn't always get along with him the way I should have, could have, if I've always had a little bit of a problem with authority, especially when it leans on you a little bit. Don't like it. That's a never have. Problem. I'm 71 years old. I don't like it. I don't do well with that. Oh, you're going to love this show on a long-term basis, Ron Swoboda, because that's a lot of what we're all about, and that's what podcast radio is about. We have no commercial interest. We don't have to please anybody. We say what we want. Anyway. That's nice.
I like
back
that.
to Gil Hodges. Hodges was a former Marine who was on, saw a lot of the fighting on Okinawa. Now he wasn't a line troop in the Marines. He was more of a headquarter communications company, I believe. But he was around it, and if you were on Okinawa, you saw a lot of stuff that you spent the rest of your life trying to run away from, trying not to think about it.
Right.
Tom Seaver once asked him what was it like on Okinawa, and Seaver was a Marine Reserve guy, and Hodges told Seaver, if you wanted to know what it was like, you needed to be there, and that's all he said. I found out from his biography, the latest biography, that my dad was on Tinian with a B-29 group. My dad was a waist gunner in a B-29. He's still kicking it, going on 94 the end of this month.
Nice.
You betcha. Yeah. And my dad, Hodges, before he went to Okinawa with the Marines, was on Tinian at the beginning of March 1945. My dad got to Tinian towards the end of March and was there in 1945 until the end of the war. So I never knew they both had touched on that little island in the Marianas together.
Right. 6 degrees
almost
of separation.
Together. Yeah, amazing. But
Absolutely.
Anyway, so Hodges was a tough guy who had seen some awful stuff in this world, and I was a kid that,
didn't like authority.
Wasn't a narrative authority, and we graded on one another, but it was never about Hodges not knowing what he was doing. It was never ever about that. It was, just feeling like, sometimes he leaned on you a little hard.
All right, I'm going to ask you one more question. I'm going to throw it over to Wayne. He's going to talk about the Yankee years a little bit. Did you get along with Art Shamsky? Yeah, because that's basically...
Oh, yeah, Sham's a friend.
Oh, good.
Sham's a buddy.
Because you guys complimented each other so well, the righty-lefty thing. And
it worked. It worked. If you look at what we did that year, we drove in 100 runs between the two of us. Now we weren't the only two guys. Rod Gasper played a little bit of right field, and What did Frank Robinson say? Who the hell is Rod Gasper?
He probably,
He said that before the World
Series.
Right,
I know what he said, and I'm going to tell you something. They had every reason to overlook us. They had every reason to think that we were over our heads against the Orioles in 1969. They had every reason to believe that.
Right.
And feel like we were just what they needed.
You weren't. All right.
Well,
I can just say that, and thank you again. I'm only 2 years behind you, 2-3 years chronologically, and I was a kid, teenager in those years, and my team, the Giants, had been taken away 5 or 6 years before when I was. So
yes.
Mets really meant a lot, and I'll tell you how crazy it is. Just listen for a second. This song still gives me goosebumps. Listen. I'm just trying to push the button here. That's how many goosebumps I have. Here we go. Meet the Met. Step right up and greet the Met. Bring your kiddies, bring your wife. Guaranteed to have the time of your life because the Mets are really rocking the ball. Knocking those home runs over the wall. East side, west side.
Everybody's coming down to meet the METS Mets from New York town. I don't know the second verse.
Or is that the bridge?
You know what? I think they used to cut after the first verse.
I think there is a second verse to it, but I never got that far.
I don't think they ever played the second verse to begin the broadcast. I think it was always
nor do I. That's amazing. Just remember Jane Jarvis playing it on the house organ. Okay, Ralph, you can push that button again.
Thank you, Ron.
I wasn't lost in reverie there, but I was interested.
I don't think he heard you, but okay, there we go.
I think the podcast maybe doesn't allow for a two-way. Anyway.
Whoa.
Oh. Yeah,
you haven't lost them now. You'll never lose them.
Okay. Let me, Wayne, talk about the Yankee years. You're the Yankee fan, and Ron, I hardly remember those Yankee years. So,
Well, I didn't do very much, and I was only grateful to have a job for 2.5 years with the Yankees. Actually, it was kind of neat coming back to New York and playing in old original Yankee Stadium that was pre-renovation with the monuments in center field, and it was pretty cool. And Ralph Houck was the manager, and I played for two guys. Ralph Houck was a Ranger during World War II in Europe, and and Hodges was a Marine, of course, in the Pacific. But Houck was a terrific man, and the Yankees were, we were a little faded glory by the time I got there, and I didn't lift the program, but it was the Yankees, and when you put the stripes on with the NY on your chest and walked out of that dugout onto that field, I got a little I got a little chill, a little hair went up on the back of my neck. It was a thrill I wasn't quite prepared for. It was kind of neat,
Good.
The bottom line is we weren't going to be a very good team, and I wasn't going to do a whole hell of a lot for them, but I got to play there and in that old stadium. And I am a piece of trivia.
You got to play with Fritz.
I got to play with Fritz Peterson, and were you going to say Mike Keckett?
He's a friend of the show and a great guy. I love you, Fritz. You're listening.
Fritz is a terrific guy, and I'll tell you what. I happened to be at the dinner when they made that rather momentous decision, that life decision, to trade wives, and a lot of people smirk about it, but you know what? Fritz Peterson is still married to Susan, and
they've been married like 40 years. They love each other. Everything is beautiful. And Mike ended up.
I guess they were both right about one thing. Before they made the switch, it was.
Did we lose you? Oh, fuck.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Let's see if you close. Hello?
Hi.
Yeah.
Did I lose you guys?
Okay, I'm here.
Go ahead.
Ron?
Go ahead.
Oh, we lost. Yeah. Ron, we lost you for a second, but that's okay. So, Ron, let me ask you something. You see, Ralph had alluded to me asking about the Yankees. So I wanted to just ask you a question about New York baseball. Myself, I was a Yankee fan, but when the Mets came to town, I rooted for the Mets. It was two New York teams. They never played each other.
That's kind of uncommon. Most people are not just baseball fans in New York. They, back when you had three teams, you had to declare, and I think when you had two teams, it's like you loved your team and hated the other guys, whichever way.
Right, but in retrospect, I love all three. I was a Giant fan, and in retrospect, and then a Met fan, I love the old Dodgers. I love the old Yankees. In retrospect,
look at the history. Look at the history of those two franchises. The Dodgers and the Giants in New York, and of course the Yankees had their own thing going, and they were winning championships. But the Dodgers and the Giants, two National League teams in the same metropolitan area, was an incredible thing. And the story of how they followed expansion to the West Coast is an amazing story. I have the book that Red Smith wrote on baseball, and he talked about how ownership dealt with that rather sensitive issue and the mechanics of the move, which doesn't exactly drape the Dodgers in any sort of glory. I think
doesn't exactly drape Walter O'Malley.
Horace Stoneham was more forthcoming about what was happening. I think the Dodger Brain Trust. I don't know if that was Bavasi then or whatnot, but they said the Dodgers will always be in Brooklyn, and of course they were lying.
Right. Yeah, they knew it. They had it set up.
But it was something that, it's interesting how baseball did it. They took established franchises and moved one of them to San Francisco and one of them to Los Angeles, and all of a sudden baseball was coast to coast. And it took them a while to get a franchise in the National League back into New York. Took a little deceit, took a little fake, took a lot of money, people with some bucks, and a pretty good strategy that was, more or less spearheaded by Bill Shea, who I'm happy to say I knew and really admired him. He was a hell of a man, and a tough Irish lawyer who got it done.
And of course, that without Branch Rickey, Mr. Rickey, and the Continental League, the hand never would have been forced.
Yeah, they did make them think they were going to start another league, and you had to have enough people with enough money to make the case.
Right.
It happened then, and in football and other sports, it's happened again a couple of times where they had to either form another league or make them think it was going to happen. But that's the business side of the game that not a lot of people are interested in.
Yeah. Well,
how was the Yankee Met rivalry, or if there was one?
Yeah, it wasn't like a rivalry because the only time we played back then was in the
Mavs Trophy game. I think like every August there was an exhibition game, the Mavs Trophy game or spring training.
So they called it, and it was it cost you an off day, but back then we played mostly double headers on Sundays, so you always had off days. It's not like today where they are loath to schedule a double header. They don't do it, and that's cost you off days. And I think, I think sometimes, I wonder. I know darn well at the AAA level, these guys could use more off days. I think it would cut down on injuries. I think it would, it would help guys, with a little more rest. And when I say an off day, in other words, a total off day. Now managers have to schedule an off day. They have to program off days in there for their regular players because off days at the AAA level don't exist hardly at all. Or you're traveling on them, and that's not a real off day. different game today. And at the big league level, they travel better, obviously, and accommodations are better, and you're getting paid better and all of that. But the schedule's tougher for those guys in the big leagues now because there are fewer true off days.
Right, and some of them you travel on that off day, which isn't really an off day.
At the AAA level, you not only travel on them, at the AAA level in the PCL, which is geographically unwieldy.
Right.
Our league goes from Tacoma up there in the northwest corner all the way down here to New Orleans. And 1 year I talked him into letting me do play-by-play, and we had that's back when Calgary and Edmonton up in Canada were still in the league, and we had to go from New Orleans to Calgary in 1 day and play a game that night. And I mean, it's a plane switch in Chicago. You land in Calgary and hump all of your radio gear and stuff through customs and get on a bus, and you barely make it to the ballpark in time. And I went through all my pregame interviews and did everything I needed to do and got everything set up. And, and I sat down in front of the microphone right before the umpires were calling play ball, and I went, I'm done. I'm used up. I was about 57 years old, and I had nothing more to give. I was running on fumes. It was all false hustle, and it sounded like it.
Hey, Ron, let me ask you this: what was your first year at a ball? The adjustment to being a civilian. What was that like?
I was, I went to work for WCBS television in New York, and damn glad I got the job.
Right. Oh, okay. So
bounced right into it, and I was a sportscaster there, and that was a shop that was full of really good reporters and anchor people, and I here I come waltzing in. I got zero ability, zero preparation.
Oh no, you have life
zero
experience.
aptitude as far as I could tell, but I got an opportunity, and there was some cachet in being a former athlete, but that was
right.
That was a stretch. That was a real stretch for a long time.
Well, Ron, you did quite well, and you may not know this, but just based off of your rookie year and that catch in '69, you had and always will have rock star status in New York.
Oh, you'll never buy a drink.
Well, I don't know about that, but I do love getting to the city. I'm a big art fan. I keep my membership up at the Metropolitan Museum, and I'm a big fan of MoMA and love the new Whitney. And I'm when I come to the city, I try to get my face into something artistic.
What do you like music-wise? You live in New Orleans.
I love, some of the traditional jazz, but I'm really more of a contemporary jazz fan. I'm pretty good friends with Branford Marsalis and a few guys. When I was doing television here, I was able, back then the late set was 11 o'clock. Now it's like 10 o'clock. But when I was on TV at 10 o'clock, I was off at 10:30. I could get to some of my favorite clubs if somebody was playing. I could get there at 11 o'clock for the late set. And those musicians were very generous. I'd hang around afterwards and talk to them about music, and they'd want to talk, Saints football or something with me, and we'd sort of exchange those things. And and I didn't have to get up early, so I could hang out late. My wife was in bed asleep, so if I got home at 11 or 1, it didn't make any difference because she was asleep because she had to get up early in the morning. So I really took advantage of that and immersed myself in live music here in New Orleans. I don't do it as much anymore, but
Let me tell you something, Ronnie. Wayne and I have a mutual friend that grew up with Wayne in the Heights. He's a little younger than me, and he's big into music. He's Donnie Markowitz. Do you get to know Donnie Markowitz at all?
He's in He's based in New Orleans right now. He's into blues and funk. His big claim to fame is, you remember the movie Dirty Dancing? He was the co-composer of the song "Time of Your Life," which actually won an Oscar that year.
Oh wow! Wow!
And he's a New Orleans guy, and if you're into jazz and stuff, but probably a different venue of jazz.
Well, you know what? In New Orleans, there's a lot of rhythm and blues. You know, there's more of that probably than contemporary jazz, but there's plenty of stuff to listen to here still. More good music venues than there's ever been, and New Orleans is still a place for musicians to come to for inspiration. You know, I don't know if it's as if it's as inexpensive to live here anymore. Rentals are a little tough. Rental market's a little rough, but from what it used to be. But it's still a place for musicians to come to hang around and be around people that can lift your game a little bit.
Yeah, I gotta ask you, because you came up with Duffy Dyer, and he was a guest on my show.
I just saw Duffy at the Mets fantasy camp. You know.
Tell me about
what a
that.
Sweet man.
Is he great or what? I really enjoy
him. As
I talking to you. You are the same way.
He's got one of these really subtle sense of humor. You know, it's really a deadpan kind of humor he does, and he's good. He's a good guy, man. He's 100%er.
And you just were terrific on the show. Any more questions you want to ask? And I want to ask you, Ron, is there anything you want to say, anything you want to get off your chest, anything you want to elaborate on that we talked about? This is a good...
We haven't talked about politics, have we?
Do you want to?
Oh, you got the right guy.
Really?
Well, you know what? What I would say, if I wanted to get anything off my chest, if I wanted to get anything off my chest about politics,
please.
I was
all right.
Probably
tell me what's going on in your head.
What's the disappointment of my 72nd year is that I thought some scintilla of comprehension of politics in America would settle in there, where you'd feel like you had some understanding of what in the living hell is going on, and I'm afraid it's the exact opposite. I have
Donald Trump
I have no idea what we're doing, I'm watching the Trump phenomenon and going, are we nuts? Are we just nuts? Are things that bad that somebody can come on there and blather all these glittering generalities with not 1 ounce of detail or what it's about, and we're going to just start pushing those little buttons in the primary, and I'm slightly appalled, and it's disconcerting.
This isn't the country that you're talking about. Your dad and Gil Hodges and fighting for Okinawa. This is craziness, and Trump himself is the most benign of the Republicans. He's the least dangerous. Cruz is.
You know what? He doesn't. He believes he can literally say anything. He can literally say anything and then modify it. The man is never wrong, never beneath anybody, never. He really does somewhere in there, because he's been able to survive through the world of business and everything else, and succeed at a level that most people cannot comprehend that has made him something that he presents as this, this gold standard for humankind. And it's like
he inherited his money. He didn't go out and make his money. He inherited his money.
Well, he made some. When he bought the Plaza Hotel, and he was that and a bunch of other properties, and he found himself more than $1 billion in debt, and a bunch of it was personal loan guarantees. He was the collateral for the loans, and he had to give up a whole lot of property to get himself off the hook because he was, in bankruptcy. A little bit of me admires somebody that could play the game like that, but in the end, when you do that kind of machination, you're stiffing a lot of folks along the way. You're playing a game that has some very tricky rules that he seemed to understand, and he's bounced back from that, but he's bounced into things like the casinos in Atlantic City, and then they go bust, and he backs off of it and just leaves the mess, and he's been able to play that game. I don't know how that translates. I don't know how that translates to politics in the way it is today. It's like I'm obviously.
But his hateful thoughts scare me more than anything. His racist, hateful thoughts. That,
if you support him, you're great. If you support him, you're great. If you disagree with him, you're an idiot. If you show him support, you're wonderful. You're amazing. You're fantastic. If you doubt him or disagree with him, then you become the lowest form of life on the planet. And I don't get that. I don't get that and why that sells. I have no idea. I have no idea.
On the other hand, I'll just ask you off the top of my head, would you like to come on my podcast where it's called Flying High Over the Zone, where we talk about this thing, and we talk about stuff politically and social thing sometime down the road, and it isn't more baseball.
I don't know if I would or not, frankly.
Yeah.
I just got all that off my chest.
Okay, that's enough then. That's enough.
I've been listening and paying attention, but I can't look. I'm my leanings are liberal. I couldn't imagine voting for a Republican, but that's where I'm at right now.
Okay, I'm just curious off the top of my head.
Yeah, no.
Is it? Are you looking for a little change from the status quo? And would you go for Bernie? Could you see Bernie?
Well, Bernie has, I think, been incredibly effective. But like a lot of people, grown-ups, his attraction seems to be to young people because his themes affect their lives, and these are young people trying to get in the system, trying to get a good job, trying to find some stability, and trying to get in the middle class, which even people that have gone to school and gotten their degree, and and you jump out of school with with all that with all of those educational loans, and it's like you got a home, it's like you got a mortgage but no home. And our government has been sponsoring a lot of that educational loans, and the colleges have raised their costs, raised their prices because everybody could get money, and it's all folded into a situation that's really been a big trap for young people, even the ones who've gone through all the programs and tried to do the right thing, and then come out and try to find a good job that can help you pay off your loans.
Absolutely.
Really
and some of these loans, unforgivable, people never pay them off.
Well, and and that's a problem too. Somebody says if you don't pay those loans off, then are they bundling those loans like they do mortgages, and trying to sell that paper as bond issues and stuff like they did?
They are.
Mortgages?
They are selling the loans.
Well, and that's a dangerous game because bad loans are one thing because bad loans are never a good idea. But if you're bundling them and selling them as investment paper, then that's what happened in 2008 when all of that toxicity came a cropper. And we're supposed to have learned that lesson.
But the
just watch
difference
the movie
between
The Big Short.
Yeah, the difference between mortgages and educational loans is you cannot get out from a student loan through bankruptcy. And if you are in arrears for a student loan, they will take it. They will obviously try to garnish your wages. They will immediately garnish any income tax returns, any income tax refunds. In other words, their hand is always reaching. It never gets cut off like a mortgage can get cut off if you do go through a successful, if a bankruptcy is successful, but yes.
When all of that went down, when the subprime mortgage debacle happened, I read as much as I could about it. I read Michael Lewis's books, The Big Short, and Liar's Poker, and I read All the Devils Are Here and Too Big to Fail. I tried to get a handle on what happened, and the movie The Big Short does a wonderful job of presenting a pretty good snapshot of what the books were about, and that is, we built this engine of death, these bogus bond issues that were created from bad loans and push the world towards the brink of financial disaster. At least anybody who was involved in those in buying that investment paper, which was crappy, phony AAA stuff that wasn't worth the paper it was written on, because so many bad loans in there, it was going to fail. And the smart guys that went in there and could read all the makeup of the loans, and shorted it with credit default swaps, were the brilliant ones in the group. But it was like this thing was going to blow up one way or the other. And the fact that there was no actuarial basis for the credit default swaps became another problem. And it was, this thing was, this was an engine of death that somebody needed to pay a bigger price for. There should be people in jail for this.
The only person in jail is the one who ripped off the millionaires.
Well, but Bernie's in jail. But honestly,
but he's the one who
Bernie,
ripped off
I'm not
millionaires.
sure. If it wasn't for the subprime debacle, Bernie'd still be out there running around taking people's money.
That's true.
You know damn well he would.
Yeah. Hey, listen, our time's coming to an end.
All right.
You're terrific. Anything you want to just say? One little final.
No, I'm.
And how about you, Wayne, my co-host?
I'm at peace.
Are you
okay, well, Ron, I just want to ask you something. You'd mentioned something to me about something going on the 5th with the 69 Mets. Would you like to just tell us about that?
Oh, we're going to be up in New Jersey. Molly Brasigliano does these occasional autographing shows, and I think it's in Central Jersey, but I don't have the venue. But
will that be March 5th or April 5th?
On the 5th, this coming Saturday, I'm going to go up and back.
to New Jersey. There'll be some 69 guys there. I don't know all of the names, but we do occasionally get together. But this will give me a chance to. I'm trying to finish up my memoir and hand it in, and this will give me a chance to get some face to face with some of the guys. So anyway.
Okay. Anything you're deciding to
right,
leave
gentlemen,
in or not put
all I
in?
can think of. No.
Is there anything you're having a problem? Should I put in my memoir? Should I leave it out? What are you thinking about?
No. God knows what I'm thinking about. I can't complain. I'm a very fortunate fellow who's been blessed with a. I'm not the smartest. I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but I'm blessed with a wonderful.
No, you have curiosity, and you're very well spoken and very articulate. So don't sell yourself short along those lines.
I'm only trying to be realistic. I love the line about Einstein, who's incredible theory of relativity. Once it was proven, he spent the rest of his life trying to disprove it. And that always says to me, the smart people in this world, the really realistic brains in this world, are always asking questions about what they think they know, and they all have an abiding respect for what they don't know. And the only way you get there is by questioning what you think you know.
Wow. Very, very, very well put.
Anyway.
Thank you, Ron.
You guys have a good one.
I hope this was fun for you and you enjoyed it and it was pressure-free.
This was terrific. You bet. You guys take care.
All right. Ron, thank you for coming on.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And
you guys take care.
I'm just going to close the show by telling everybody to keep on keeping on. Life is not all that easy. It's a roller coaster. You're up, you're down. Try not to be too high or too low at any one given time. And thank you, Wayne, man. This is super, huh?
This is great. Have a great night, gentlemen.
Okay. Take care.
Bye-bye.